warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat petang juga selamat sejahtera. Salam Malaysia Madani, salam Sabah Maju Jaya, salam sepakat Sabah Tepat, salam Dare to Change dari PPD Kota Kinabalu, salam CDL Cikgu Mita Tabang kepada semua guru dan para pendidik yang bersama kami pada ketika ini. Saya Masnurul Faezah binti Masnan dari SD Malawa Kota Kinabalu, Sabah akan menjadi moderator pada hari ini. Sesi rasmi akan bermula tepat pada jam 3 petang. Untuk mengisi ruang menunggu ini secara lebih bermakna, kita ada sesi perkongsian pendek mingguan daripada seorang individu yang cukup terkenal sebagai seorang motivator dalam dunia pendidikan. Namanya pemimpin pendidikan di negara kita adalah hasil didikan beliau kerana beliau merupakan mantan pengarah IAB yang telah bersara pada Oktober 2019 dan mantan fellow penyelidik London School of Education, University of Nottingham. Sekarang beliau bergiat aktif sebagai salah seorang daripada ahli dalam Majlis Penasihat Pendidikan Kebangsaan MPPK. Tanpa membuang masa, kita persilakan Dato Dr. Mehander Singh untuk sesi Snippets Reflect On yang bertajuk Pemimpin yang Tak Akan Kita Lupa. Dipersilakan Dato.
Kepada semua cikgu yang dapat bersama pada petang ini, terima kasih juga kerana dapat meluangkan masa dalam siri snippet, iaitu tajuk kita hari ini ialah pemimpin yang mungkin kita tak mudah lupai atau tak akan kita lupai. Leaders we will never forget. Bagi kita, di antara kita rakan-rakan semua yang pernah berkhidmat di beberapa tempat, tidak asing lagi bahawa kita mungkin akan membandingkan di antara style kepimpinan atau cara kepimpinan yang kita lalui. Ada 12 perkara yang saya nak kongsikan. Dan saya suka apa yang Jack Welch sebut dan saya pernah kongsi beberapa kali. In fact, when you were made a leader, you weren't given a crown. You were given the responsibility to bring out the best in others. Leadership is about bagaimana anda membawa responsibility to bring out the best in others. That is about leadership. Of course, banyak perkara yang lain tentang leadership ini. So, leaders we will never forget ialah leaders macam mana? Pemimpin yang tak akan kita lupai. Yang pertama, yang mengutamakan kesejahteraan kita. Di samping mencapai matlamat organisasi. Ya, kadang-kadang kita sibuk. Tapi kita tahu, ibu kepada staf kita tu sakit. Kalau kita terserempak dengan dia pun, boleh tanya. Tanya dia, how's your mother? Macam mana ibu anda? Hari tu dia kata, saya akan lewat sedikit, saya kena keluar awal sedikit. So, kesejahteraan, well-being. Ini penting ni, berdiri di sisi kita semasa situasi yang mencabar. Bukannya berada di jauh belakang dan bagi kita menghadapi peluru yang kita akan kena. Ini sangat penting, saya rasa semua orang faham yang nombor 2 ni. We want a leader who will be by our side every time. Next slide please. Okay, so yang ketiga, menurunkan kuasa kepada kepada anak murid, kepada anak buah dengan kepercayaan dan autonomi. Beri tugas, kita monitor tapi kita beri kepercayaan. Dan ini banyak berlaku di sekolah. Banyak-banyak jawatan kuasa, PGB, pengarah, ketua PPD, selalu memberi ruang dan peluang kepada anak buah dia. Yang keempat, siapakah pemimpin yang tak akan kita lupai? Pemimpin yang membantu kita berkembang dan menyediakan tempat yang selamat untuk bekerja. Kalau beri idea, jangan risau. Kalau tersilap idea pun tak akan kita dicop ya pada dahi kita, oh ini pemberontak, ini yang selalu Mr. No. No, kita berani nak meluahkan idea. Kita berani nak kongsi pandangan kita. Yang penting, saya pernah terbaca, how do you measure the greatness of a leader? Jawapannya, by the growth of his subordinates. Kalau dia je hebat, dia je jadi cemerlang semua, bila nak dapat satu, dia ada di depan. No. Kalau ada peluang, ruang dan peluang untuk anak buah nak berkembang untuk pembangunan profesional, beri mereka peluang. Sediakan ruang dan peluang. Pemimpin itu tak akan kita lupai. Yang kelima, memupuk budaya kerjasama dan rasa hormat. You must respect people. Ini adalah zaman revolusi emosi. Dan yang keenam, menggalakkan pembelajaran berterusan dan pertumbuhan peribadi. Nombor 7, menunjukkan pemahaman, understanding, memastikan yang kita tahu bahawa kerja kita dan diri kita adalah penting. It's not about the cosmetics, but it's about the people, right? Make sure that everyone is comfortable. Yang penting bukan saja outcome sahaja, tetapi juga individu dalam organisasi. Yang ke-9, dan kadang-kadang orang tanya saya kata, okey, doktor, saya tak tahulah sekarang ni saya dah 10 tahun, what next I nak buat? Kata, kalau you berminat, why not you apply for GC? Kalau you berminat, why not you apply for HLP? Kalau you berminat, kalau tak nak HLP, you sambung belajar part-time or something. Kita tak perlu ada why, kenapa saya nak kongsi. Rezeki ini, setiap orang ada rezeki dia tersendiri. So kita tak perlu mencemburui. Kalau seorang rakan kita dapat something extra, it's okay. Kenaikan pangkat ke, jadi GC ke, anything. Janganlah kita kata, you GC, you buatlah kerja tu. That's not. Kerana ruang dan peluang itu ada. Kita galakkan. Yang ke-10, kalau ada apa-apa kesukaran, ada cabaran, kita tak faham macam mana nak melaksanakan satu kerja, kita bimbing. Yang ke-11, meraihkan kemenangan dan memberi ganjaran kepada usaha. Walaupun kenaikan pangkat secara time base, adakan majlis, bagilah sijil atau surat kenaikan pangkat itu. It's good. Celebrate our wins. Kalau kita selalu merungut-rungut, akhir sekali bila pemimpin macam ni, dia pencen, orang kalau nampak dia pun ambil jalan yang lain. Because you're always thinking about work, you were never that nice person, you know. Ada balance di antara kerja dan juga perkara-perkara. Dan yang ke-12, memotivasikan kita untuk melangkaui had. Macam kalau Cikgu Nabilah kata, tak adalah doktor, saya rasa saya ni tak bolehlah memohon GC. Ramai yang fikir macam tu. Saya kata, no, you should give it a try. You dah ada kehebatan dalam bab ini dan sebagainya. So go, give it a try. Kerana kita mesti mencabar diri kita, dan siapa yang boleh memimpin kita? Pemimpin. Dan kalau pemimpin itu berjaya memotivasikan kita, maka pemimpin itulah yang tak akan kita lupai. So tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, 12 pemimpin, ciri pemimpin yang tak akan mungkin kita lupai, tapi mungkin tuan-tuan dan puan-puan boleh tambah lagi. Ini tidak berarti hanya 12 ini. Mungkin ada yang ke-13 dan yang ke-14. So tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. So kita jaga anak buah kita. So tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, ilmu tu kita boleh dapat daripada pelbagai sumber, ya. Dan saya rasa ramai yang datang dalam CDL ini berhasrat untuk nak dapat ilmu. Ingat kerana kita jangan ada apa-apa hasrat dengki dengan rakan-rakan kita, kerana rezeki itu adalah the ownership of each individual. Right? Kita menyokong. Kerana rezeki kita tu pun ada untuk rezeki kita sendiri. Kalau rakan kita nak belajar, nak ambil masters PhD, kata, okay, go ahead. Kita bagi sokongan pada mereka. Dan kalau kita ada azam sendiri, kita pun teruskan. Kalau rakan kita nak jadi GC, galakkan dia. Okey, tapi sedia buat persediaan. Tak boleh kertas kosong nak minta GC, tak. Buat persediaan yang mantap. Dan kepada semua cikgu-cikgu yang bersama kita pada hari ini, terima kasih. Marilah kita terus berjuang untuk bidang pendidikan, untuk pendidikan di negara kita. Kepada cikgu semua, masih lagi dalam musim Hari Guru ini, saya nak kata, work hard in silence, let your success be your noise. So tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, seperti saya kata, if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. So dapatlah ilmu daripada pelbagai sumber. Teruskan perjuangan untuk mendapat ilmu. Sekian, terima kasih.
Terima kasih Dato atas sesi Snippets sebentar tadi yang sungguh bermakna dan memberi inspirasi serta panduan kepada kami para pendidik. Sebagai guru, saya percaya mari kita sama-sama memimpin dan mendorong anak-anak murid untuk mengembangkan kebolehan yang ada dalam diri mereka. Baiklah, semoga kita juga terus mengorak langkah mencari ilmu untuk menjadi pendidik yang berinovasi, berwawasan dan berilmu dengan murid-murid kita. Terima kasih sekali lagi Dato, Dr. Mehander atas sesi perkongsian tadi. Baiklah, tanpa membuang masa, kita teruskan dengan sesi hari ini. Sekali lagi kepada para peserta yang baru bersama dengan kami, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia Madani, salam Sabah Maju Jaya, salam sepakat Sabah Hebat, salam Dare to Change dari PPD Kota Kinabalu, salam CDL Cikgu Mita Tabang, diucapkan kepada yang berbahagia Dato Dr. Amin Senin, pengasas CDL, penceramah jemputan mingguan kita, Dato Dr. Mehander Singh, penceramah CDL seri ke-117, Puan Auzellea, Kristin Mozihim, Guru Bahasa Inggeris SMK Bongawan Papar, Puan LC Sharon Gilo, Koordinator CDL Cikgu Mita Tabang Sabah, para pengetua dan guru besar, para pendidik dan guru-guru di seluruh Sabah khasnya, dan yang sudi bersama kami dari seluruh pelosok Malaysia. Saya Masnurul Faezah binti Masnan dari SK Malawa Kota Kinabalu akan menjadi moderator pada hari ini. Selamat bertemu sekali lagi dalam seri CDL seri ke-117 #Cikgu Minta Tabang yang juga bermakna Cikgu Bantu Cikgu. Minta Tabang adalah merupakan daripada bahasa suku kaum etnik Sabah. Ini adalah satu sesi perkongsian ilmu yang dijalankan secara bersiri menerusi siri hands-on online session. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, para pendidik sekalian, mari kita lihat paparan skrip untuk objektif CDL hands-on. Antara objektifnya ialah berkongsi ilmu dan kemahiran, membangunkan kompetensi guru, meningkatkan keupayaan, membina jalinan dan jaringan berterusan. Peserta perlu mendaftar sebagai pelanggan atau ahli CDL. Pendaftaran adalah percuma, boleh layari www.connectingdots.my. Peserta juga boleh mengikuti program melalui patuan Zoom yang tertera pada poster. Dan sesi perkongsian adalah berlangsung pada setiap hari Khamis selama 1 jam 30 minit iaitu dari 3 petang sehingga 4 petang. Perkongsian secara hands-on dan e-sijil serta kehadiran disediakan menerusi pautan yang akan diberikan pada akhir sesi. Cikgu-cikgu boleh scan QR code dalam paparan untuk join dalam grup Telegram atau WhatsApp rasmi CDL. Di sini anda akan dapat maklumat terkini tentang siri perkongsian CDL. Baiklah, seterusnya, jom kita berkenalan dengan penceramah CDL siri ke-117, iaitu Puan Auzellea Kristin Mozihim, yang akan membuat perkongsian dengan kita pada petang ini bertajuk Empowering English Classroom through Civic Engagement and PBL, a Framework. Berikut saya bacakan sedikit tentang beliau. Madam Auzellea has been teaching 10 years. She is a Fulbright 2022 alumni. Her interest in integrating civic education into her English lesson. All right, without further ado, let's welcome our speaker for today, Madam Auzellea.
Okay, hello everyone. I hope you all can hear me. All right, so I'm going to share screen first. And thank you, Masnurul, for the introduction. Okay, so this is the title for the workshop for today. Okay, so I'm from SMK Bongawan, Papar. Okay, so this is basically a framework which is easily adaptable and flexible for you to apply in your own classroom context. Okay. All right. So a little bit of housekeeping. Okay, I'm gonna ask Wani. Wani, can you share the link? Make a copy of the handout. The link is in the chat. It's on Google Google Docs. Okay, and then after you have opened the handout, there's an instruction there saying that you need to make a copy of it, and so that you can have it for your own reference, and you need to type your answers in the handout. Okay, so as you go along, going through the framework, you need to type in your ideas or your answers, and then you can copy paste the details from the handout into the chat box when asked to share. Okay, since this is a workshop, not a lecture, I expect everyone to engage actively and interact. You don't have to turn on your mic. You can just type in the chat box. Okay, so let's avoid awkward silences in the chat box at least. Okay. Okay, so I have shared the link in the chat box. I hope each and every one of you are able to open it. Okay, so it says there. Okay, yeah, so please make a copy of this document for your own reference. If you don't know how, you can just go to File. It's on your left-hand side on top of the screen, and then choose Make a Copy so that you can type it in. For this one, the one that I'm showing you, it's non-editable. Okay. And then write your ideas on this document, your own copy, as we go through the framework. Okay, so, but later on you can refine it after we are done with this workshop, as you look back at your ideas and all that. Okay, so okay, right. Okay, well, I'm gonna move on to the next slide now. Okay, firstly, what do you understand by project-based learning? Okay, you can write in the chat box or turn on your mic to speak. Okay, so Cikgu Santa, you said here plan lesson, which sometimes requires longer time to learn new and difficult contents. Yeah, one of the keyword is longer time lah. So this is when you do PBL with your students, it's not just a 1 hour lesson, but it's like a few months. No, it could extend to a few months. Okay, who else has other ideas? Lesson to doing hands-on project. Yes, it's definitely hands-on. It's not just what we usually do in the class, but they are required to go out of, they are required to look beyond the classroom. Anybody else? Okay, if there's nobody else, okay, I'm gonna show you basically what is the definition of project-based learning. Okay, it's guided. Yes, it needs to be guided. That's why we have this framework. Okay, so PBL is a teaching method. It's a pedagogical method, and where students learn by actively engaging in real world and personally meaningful projects. So it needs to be personal. It needs to relate to them. Instead of traditional teaching, where students passively receive information, PBL allows them to explore and respond to complex questions, problems, or challenges over an extended period of time. Yeah, so this project requires an extended period of time. So that they can reflect and the teachers can facilitate them and all that. Okay, next question. Okay, since this is also to inculcate civic values in your students, what do you understand by civic engagement? Write in the chat box or turn on your mic to speak. Very detailed lesson which passes through different skills. Oh, students learn internalized concepts while doing project. Okay, that one is PBL. How about civic engagement? What do you understand by civic engagement? Okay, so
Involving student, educator, and institution in activity that promote responsible citizenship and and participation.
okay, thank
Maybe.
you. All right. Yeah, it's something like that. And then Dalina here said community involvement. Yes, it involves the community working to make a difference in the community. Chigu Fiona said here. Okay, you have the keyword here, community. Ida said the process of individuals working to improve their communities and contribute to the public good. Okay, a concept where students learn about the community and also culture. Okay, and leadership. Okay, so most of you answered about your keywords involve communities, and then leadership. Yes, there needs to be when you do this, there needs to be, you will inculcate some sense of some leadership values within your students somehow. Okay, all right, thank you for your responses. Okay, let's see what's the definition. Yeah. Okay, for students, civic engagement can start with small actions. So it doesn't have to be big, like participating in school projects. So it can be at the school level. It doesn't have to go out of the school. Okay, that benefit the community. So most of you answered community. Okay, learning about how local government works. Maybe you can refer to the Majlis Daerah and all that, or discussing current events and their impact on society. Right, and it's about encouraging them to be informed, active, and caring members of their community. So yeah, it's basically I think one of the things that one of you answered, working to improve their communities. So yeah, they in order to improve the community, you need to be a caring person, right? Yeah, so that is one of this is the definition of civic engagement. So that is what this framework is about. You want to inculcate this sort of values into your students, not only learning English, but at the same time, you're also inculcating civic engagement values because they need to look at, what is happening with the world. Not necessarily the whole world, but at least their surrounding area, their own community. Okay, so next. Okay, so this is a project-based learning. So when it comes to doing project-based learning, these are the teaching practices that we teachers need to have, okay, when we do the project with our students. So it involves aligning to standards, which means that we have the DSKP. So it doesn't matter whether you're teaching primary school, secondary school, or even Form 6, this is applicable for all, okay, as long as it is aligned with your standards. So for me, as a secondary school teacher, I always adhere to the DSKP, okay? And then writing and speaking rubric go toward achieving a 5 because I teach SPM, so my goal is for them to achieve a 5 in terms of the 4 assessment scales, especially on language, okay? And then build the culture. Build the culture meaning you'll need to have a classroom culture, a classroom culture whereby they want to work with one another, and then it's easy for them to collaborate with one another, okay? And then manage activities. That means you are the facilitator for this. We don't just give them the assignment and then just leave them at that. No, we don't do that. Okay, we need to manage the activities from time to time. We need to look at the progress, give them tips and guidance. Okay, and scaffold student learning. Assess student learning. That means like like in teaching, there are 3. I call this the triad, the holy triad of teaching, which is pedagogy, curriculum, and assessment. So we have to assess student learning, okay, to know that where they are at, whether they understand what they are doing and what they are learning. And then you have to engage and coach. This is basically the same as managing activities. You have to guide them. And design and plan. So the designing and planning is part of the framework. There are 7 stages, which I will show it to you later. Okay, so when you want to do this project with your students, you have to choose one issue based on the themes in the English curriculum for Malaysia lah. So for Malaysia, we have people and culture, environment and health, financial awareness and consumerism, and science and technology. Okay, so the themes can be aligned with the SDGs. If you are familiar with the Sustainable Developmental Goals by United Nations 2030, okay, which needs to be achieved by 2030. Okay, so you can also align your issue with this, because if you notice, all of these 17 goals, they can be aligned with the themes in our English curriculum. Okay, so it's all up to you. Okay, so because we are not only focusing on content, this is content, but we are also focusing on vocabulary. So vocabulary development is based on the theme throughout the project. So that means you need to incorporate the explicit use of language elements that will help students achieve a 5 for each assessed criterion. I mean, you go towards that goal line. If they don't achieve it, then that's fine. But at least when you plan this, when you design and plan this PBL for your students, you have to take note of that. Based on WASA, for maybe you are teaching primary school or until Form 3, WASA format, or SPM, speaking and writing format. Okay, early on that's the teaching practices, the 7 teaching practices, and now it's the 7 design elements, 7 essential project design elements. So you need all of this, okay, whenever you design your PBL. So based on the framework that I'm gonna give you, all of the elements here for the project design and also the teaching practices, they need to be included implicitly, okay, when you are doing this project with your students. Okay. All right, so this is the framework that I have developed. So stage 1 is introduction, stage 2 group discussion, and so on, which we will look at it later. So there are 7 stages. Okay, for your information, what I'm going to share with you is already registered with my IPO. Okay, so this is the certificate. Okay, so I already did, based on this framework, I already did this one. It's based on SDG 11, which is Sustainable Cities and Communities, with the first batch of students. And so now I'm going to show you the example of this, of how I did it according to the framework. Okay. All right. So the stage 1 is, okay, yeah, these are the stages. And then, okay, stage 1 is I introduce them the concept of sustainable city or town planning. So now we are going showing you how I apply the framework to my own classroom context. Yeah, so I give them educational videos and guided handouts. So for this lesson, those are listening lesson and comprehension skills. I give them the handout and they listen to the video. They watch and listen to the video. And then I get them into a group discussion. So these are the prompt questions, you know. I connect all of the questions to socioeconomic dimensions in simple terms. Okay, like how are the conditions of sustainability in your community? What is the problem in your school or community? And then how does the condition affect you, your friends, and your family? Okay. And then I get them, after that, stage 3, they go out, they interview the community. Because this is civic engagement, they need to engage with the community. That's why they need to interview the community, okay? So for me, I give them 1 to 2 weeks to complete it. And then in the class, I give them time to form the 5W1H questions. And then all of the questions, they need to cater all 4 aspects of sustainable town planning and connect them to socioeconomic dimension in simple terms. So these are the examples of the questions. And then I get them to create a visual presentation. So for this stage, they synthesize the information that they get from the group discussion and interviewing the community. They synthesize it, they create a visual presentation. For me, I did mind map lah. Okay, and then propose solutions to various formats. After that, they propose the solutions to the problems that they face, that they have identified in their own community. For me, it's just the small town around in the surrounding area of the school. Okay, so they created maps, videos, brochures, podcasts for their solutions. So these are student samples. And then after they've done creating their product, they presented their product asynchronously to experts. That's how I did it, because I shared what they have created in a Google Drive and sent to this NGO. They are called Kota Sabah. They are advocates of sustainable city planning based in Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. So I have a group of experts. I have collaborated with them, and they were the ones who evaluated the students' project. So these are the access criteria. This is the form, and then after that, my students, they read the feedback for with regards to their project, and then reflection. The reflection, if you're interested, you can listen to my students' reflection. It's on YouTube. These were the questions, and I gave them assessment at the end. Okay. They wrote. Oh, the first assessment is they wrote a letter to the district council. Like seriously, wrote the problems. Okay, the problems in that town to the district council, and then I was the one who sent the letters to the letter to the district council. But the ideas and solutions, it all came from them. And then this is based on this assessment activity number 2, which is based on the SPM format. Okay, I created the questions myself, but it goes according to the SPM format. So this is the outcome. They learn about they were able to integrate what they have learned, the vocabularies that they have learned throughout the project, throughout doing the project, into the writing task. Okay, yeah, so that's it. Okay, so I hope that gives a glimpse of how you can implement this project. Okay, I mean this framework for your own context. So now I hope you have your handout ready. Okay, okay, so the first activity is you have to think of engaging real world problems or questions. So create a question for the students as the driving question for the whole project. Usually it will start with how does, based on the, maybe it really depends on your context. Okay, maybe your place is famous for tourism, maybe it's famous for, I don't know, social problems, it really depends. So think of what are some current issues in your community and school that would intrigue and challenge your students. So please think of a question. I'll give you 3 minutes, okay? And then after that, you share it in the chat box. Okay, interesting. Keep the questions coming. I would love to, read your questions. I mean, the questions that you come up with for your students.
How to keep your school clean? Second one.
Okay, so thank you for the questions that you have formed for your students. So first one is from Chigo Shabita. How can our school reduce plastic waste? Okay, so this typically align with the theme of environment. And then from Chuan Yu Yun, you said how to keep your school clean. Okay, so this one is also related to the theme of environment. So as you can see, it can be about anything as long as it is near to your students' context, because they will be exploring what is happening in their surroundings. Okay. All right. So I hope for the rest of you, you have already tried to come up with a question for your students. After that, you can refine it. Don't worry. Okay. So now, stage 1. Oh, before that, a pre-PBL implementation is to administer an essay question or any type of assessment, in any form of assessment in the form of WASA or SPM writing format relating to the issue that they're exploring. This is to know the differences between before and after you did the project. Okay, so the PBL teaching practice is assess student learning. Okay, so stage 1. All right, I hope you, okay, in the handout, think of how do you want to introduce the issue to your students while incorporating language activities. What are the vocabularies that you want students to learn throughout the project? So do you want them to watch and listen to videos or reading an article? So it must cater to the language skills. Like what I did earlier that I show you is I showed them a video and they in the handout they listen while they take down notes. So it's basically a listening activity lah. Okay, so think about it. Okay, Elsie, I will share the link. Okay, hold on. Okay, so to those who just came in, here's the link. I'm showing you. Oh, I think the others have shared it. And then I'll share it again. Okay, so to those who just came in, this is the link that you need to make a copy of this document for own reference. Yeah. Okay.
We have some question from teacher Jenny. This
Uh-huh.
is a grade for secondary pupils interviewing outsider for the project work. One, can you suggest how my year 5 students do such activities? I have 2 classes. One is the LP and one is on the LP. Can I just make up a problem? For example, food waste, canteen, to get pupils to interview teachers as the community.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm sure this is one of the concerns now because you don't want your primary school kids to like simply go out, right? Because it's due to safety. Yeah, you can make up a problem. Yeah, usually it's the canteen
Mhm.
lah. Okay, and then get pupils to interview teachers. Yeah, because I think the teachers is the nearest, the nearest community in the
Community
school. Yeah, members of
inside the school.
community in the school. Yeah, yeah. So you can
Okay,
make.
another one is from Juan Anita. How to use AI in school? Another brainstorm
Yeah.
for the. And then the teacher Denny said, what can we do as students to promote sustainable living in our community?
Yeah. So
Those are the brainstorm. Okay.
thank you. Yeah, so these two are excellent and intriguing driving questions for your students for the project.
So the first stage is we need to form a question, right? Whatever is it.
Yeah, you need to form a question. Usually it starts with the word how. Okay.
Mhm. That is a pre-stage, and in the stage 1, we go to introduction.
Yeah, that means you need to introduce the concepts to your students. Basically the vocabularies lah.
Oh, okay. So the key word for introduction is the vocabularies, right?
Yeah, vocabulary. Yeah.
Okay.
How are you going to introduce the vocabularies to them? Is it by
Mhm.
reading? Is it by videos?
That's why the number 2 there, watching and listening to videos, anything strategy that you want to introduce the vocabulary for the student, right?
Yes, any strategies that you want. It's all up to you.
Okay. Okay. So the next stage.
The next stage, okay. How about the others? I mean, I want to know what are your plans? Like what at least tell me what kind of activities that you plan to do lah. Maybe they can share it in the chat box.
How about we come with one topic so that they can give their ideas based on the topic we choose. For
Okay.
example, maybe the what is that? Sampah just now.
Environment
How
lah.
to reduce, yeah. How to
Okay.
reduce
Maybe we
the
can use how to reduce.
plastic
Okay.
waste.
Okay, maybe we
Plastic
can
waste.
maybe we can use Cikgu Shabita's driving question lah. How can our school
Mhm.
reduce plastic waste? Okay.
How to reduce the waste in school.
So how do you
Like,
introduce this topic to your
how?
students?
If I were the teacher, I will ask the student to look around in their class. Is there any rubbish inside the table? As the introduction lah.
Uh-huh.
And then we are going to talk about it. Do you like to stay in the dirty class? Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you can do it like that. And then, oh, Joshua said here, life underwater. Maybe we can teach topic about what life and sea creatures. Yes, but make sure the topic is
In the team, right?
it's your students are able to explore it on their own. Like it relates to their own context. Maybe your school is near the wildlife and
Beach.
sea creatures. So it's maybe I know some schools they are really they are situated beside the sea, right? So if your school is situated beside the sea, or maybe you are a sekolah pulau kan, you can do that. That would be interesting. Okay, so maybe some of you are still thinking. Now let's move on to stage 2. Oh, hold on. Okay, so yeah, so stage 2 is after you have introduced the vocabulary through your lessons, and also the driving question, you need to do a group discussion. So how do you want students to think of the issue that you had introduced? Okay, so construct 3 questions that make students reflect on how the issue impacts themselves and the community. That means what are the effects? Okay, so the questions need to reflect problems and effects and socioeconomic dimensions in simple terms like income, age, or government initiative. Like for income, you can say use terms like the poor and the rich. You know, if you are teaching a primary school, poor and the rich. And age, maybe you can use terms like old, young. All right. Okay, so how can you, okay, now I give you 3 minutes to construct 3 questions based on your driving question, okay, on how you want your students to think about the issue. Okay, so Chigu Jenny has responded. She said here, why do you think some of your friends get RMT assistance? So this is probably related to food, right? The theme of food. Or no hunger. If it's aligned with the SDGs, zero hunger. Sorry, zero hunger. Yeah. Okay. That is one of the questions that you can pose to your students during this group discussion time. So how about the rest?
Why is it important to reduce waste in school?
Yeah, that could also be the question.
The question is not the question is whatever is it, right? So that the student can discuss.
Yeah, but they need to reflect on how the issue impacts themselves and the community. The community meaning here, you can say to them like their family or their neighbors. Easy. Because sometimes when they think of community, they will think of other people, right? But maybe just focus on their family members or their neighbors. That's an easy way out. Okay, so for this stage, as long as the questions you created based on your driving question and themes that you have that you have decided earlier on, it needs to reflect the problems and the effects. So firstly, the effects and the problem and then the effects. Okay, so the project design element for this is challenging problem or question, sustained inquiry because they are thinking, and then scaffold student learning. Okay, now let's move on to stage 2. Okay, stage 3, sorry. So for stage 3, now they need to engage with the community. They need to interview the community or conduct a survey. It's all up to you how you want them to do it. Okay, and then number 1 is have students create 5 W1H questions based on the issue. And then you have to check the questions to see if they reflect the questions that ask about problems and effects. Okay, to see if the questions actually prompt them to think about the problems and effects of the issue. Okay, and then you also need to think about how long do you want them to conduct the interview. For me, like what I shared earlier, is 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, and then where do you want them to note the answers down? For me, I just have them write down inside their inside their writing book or their notebook, and then any other considerations that you'd like to think about. So now your task is what are the okay, number 3, you need to answer number 3. How long do you want them to conduct the interview? Okay, and where do you want them to note the answers down? Or maybe you want to in a Google form. It's all up to you. So I would like to hear your ideas lah. Write your ideas in the chat box. I give you 3 minutes to think. Answer number 3.
If I were the teacher, I would like to make a box of idea that everyone can write down the idea and put inside the box as the activity lah, one of the activity. Or the student can use the box, go to class by class and ask the student ideas how to reduce the waste. And then after that, we will discuss about it in the class.
Yeah,
What do you think about the activity?
Yeah, that's an interesting activity. So because you are focusing on the school community, that is also doable. Just focus on the school community. Like, you don't have to, especially for
Primary school, actually. That's why I was
Yeah.
thinking for the primary school.
especially for primary school, you're thinking about safety and all that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go out of the classroom. They ask the next class. They ask
Mhm.
even the makcik pembersihan pun boleh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. They can ask. That is the community that I'm referring to lah. For your context. So how long do you want them to conduct the interview?
Given 1 week, just 1 week. Yes.
1 week to
The other week is discussion about the ideas that they get from the box.
Yes. Okay.
We have from Juan Shavita. Write the question on the sticky note and pass it in the class bulletin board and answer in a different color sticky note. That's interesting too.
Yeah, that's interesting as well. But you need to remember that maybe the questions they can be asked to people outside of the classroom. Maybe it's a bulletin board somewhere in the school.
Yeah, the parents, right? The parents is also the community.
Yeah. So remember to also to include those outside of the classroom. Yeah,
So
yeah.
the box also can be used by the parents also.
Yeah. This is a good idea. Yeah, sticky notes, and then answer in a different colored sticky note. Yes, interesting way of conducting surveys or interviewing the community. How about the rest? Any other way? For me, what I did was, well, they just go out and then interview lah. So, and then the proof is that they have their, they've taken down notes. Of course, the questions, when they create the questions, it needs to be in English. But I know that people outside of the school might not be as fluent. So, just allow them to ask the questions, to interview the people in Malay or any other languages that they are comfortable with using. But in the end, the answers needs to be in English lah.
That's when this framework can be used for other subject, right?
Yeah, you can use it for Malay as well. Malay language ka. Maybe some of you are maybe Mandarin. Any language lah, because it's also focus on language kan.
Yeah, I can
Oh.
see that.
Yeah.
So, Madam Jenny, I will want the pupils to write them down in their notebook for this project as they conduct the interviews in the school community. A week or two maybe, as they need to really observe the campaign.
Okay. Yeah.
Still with the food waste, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Food. Yeah. The theme of food. Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you for your responses. These are creative. Okay. Now let's move on to stage 4. So, for stage 4, you need to, it's a synthesization of stage 2 and stage 3. The information that they get from stage 2 and stage 3. Okay, so they synthesize the information and data that they obtain from stage 2 and 3. Okay, so what kind of visual presentation do you want them to create? Okay, just share it in the chat box. Okay, what kind of presentation? Maybe you want bar chart, pie chart, up to you. And does it involve class presentations or just a written report? For me, I've never done class presentations. I only have them to, well, it's sort of a report lah in a way. I have them create a mind map based on what they have synthesized in stage 2 and stage 3. So how about all of you? What is your idea? Maybe you have 3 minutes to think about it and share it in the chat box.
Yeah. Teacher Shakta said, create a poster which can be integrated in art lesson or computer lesson or create a poster in Canva.
Okay. Yeah, create a poster. Yes, that is a visual presentation. Yeah, as long as it synthesizes the information from stage 2 and stage 3 lah. Yeah, it is interesting. Art lesson, integrate in art lesson. Yes, you can integrate it with arts and use Canva, yes. That way won't be boring lah. How about the others? Okay, can co-teach with, yes, you can co-teach with other teachers. Yes, definitely. How about the others? Yeah. For me, very typical lah. It's the bar chart, pie chart, mind map. But how about the others? Maybe I'm missing out on a few strategies here. Like Cikgu Shabita, you suggested a very creative way of having a visual presentation lah. Create a poster. But then again, it also needs to be suitable for your level lah. Mine is basically from 4. But how about the primary school teachers? I'm interested to know.
Oh, this one is interesting. And Teacher Jenny said maybe podcast, create a podcast, get the ICT team to get involved, PSS as well. Just an idea, she said.
Yeah.
Is it can be, is it a visual presentation? Is it?
Maybe.
Or,
It's not really visual because for podcast it's more to listening, right? And even if they have the even if you are recording it, you know, for viewers, still you need to have the information from, you need to have the synthesized information from stage 2 and stage 3. So maybe instead of a podcast, which is still interesting, but maybe they maybe a presentation of the stage 2 and stage 3 lah, because you need to show people what you have created. For podcast, it's just the voice, right? Yeah, so we need to think of how to show to people. Yeah,
visual presentation of the data.
yeah, visual presentation of the data from stage 2 and stage 3. A video, yeah, a video and show them to the whole school. Yeah, so the video needs to include the data lah. In any way that you want to present the video, as long as is the synthesization of stage 2 and stage 3. Yeah. Okay, thank you for your responses. Let's move on to the 5th stage. Okay, now propose solutions. Okay, so now, because every problem there needs to be a solution, right? So we want our students to be problem solvers, basically. So that's why they want to become solutionary individuals. So as teachers, we need to think of what format do you want your students to present their solutions in, and for how long do you want them to do it. For me, usually it takes about 3 months, because I don't want to overwhelm them. I don't want to make them, rush into things. Otherwise, the quality will be very low. So I want them to do it properly. I give them 3 months at least. And then you take into account of other school activities. So this is one of the things that you need to consider. I know for us, the sports event has ended, right? But then again, there will be a few more programs that your school might be organizing later on. So you need to take into account of your takvim sekolah lah. Okay. And number 3, how should your students leverage on their talents and skills when creating the product? Okay. So this means that because our students, they have a lot of talents, they have a lot of interests. Some of them, they like to create videos. Some of them, they like to draw. Okay. Some of them, they basically like to write. So for me, what I did was, I gave them the choice lah. Okay. And the format is they can create YouTube videos. And then some of them, they like to draw. So I gave them maps, because for sustainable city planning, that topic is suitable when drawing a map is suitable for that topic, because you need to show people the before and after your solution is being implemented. So that's why you need to get to know your students. If they like to draw, encourage them to draw when they, to propose the solutions. And if they like to create videos, encourage them to create videos. So that's how I do it. You need to really understand your students first, what they like to do. Okay, so now please share in the chat box for how long do you want them to do it, and then what kind of, maybe just share what kind of talents and skills that you have identified among your students, that they can use it for this project. Okay, maybe in 3 minutes, think about it in 3 minutes. Just reflect on how your students are, Okay, and then share it in the chat box.
As I know, PBL kan, it's actually the students need to choose their own format. We as a teacher just give the choice. Differently from primary. Primary, we didn't call it PBL, we call it as project leader, because they need guidance. So it's up to us lah. For primary, we can give the format, and for the secondary, we can ask them what they are going to use. As teacher Shavita said, they can do show and tell in the class or present it in the morning assembly, or maybe in their HIP corner for the whole year group.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So it doesn't matter what kind of product, as long as the solution, you present your solutions through that product. Like for example, Cikgu Shabita here, do show and tell in the class, or present it in the morning assembly, or maybe in the HIP corner for the whole year group. Yes. So as long as during that show and tell, you tell the people or the audience the problem, and then the effects, and what are the solutions
Anak pakai snippet nak kotor nah.
to that problem. Okay, and then HIP corner, yes. So this is one of the easiest way lah. So maybe for me, my students, they did podcasting, they created videos and all that. But it depends on what they want to do. You give them a few choices, and maybe they have their own choice, they want their own way, but you need to, of course, you need to guide them lah. They need to ask you first if this is suitable to be presented for, in terms of presenting their solutions. Yeah. Like for some of my students, they said they want to sing, they want to create a song. Okay, so as long as the solution, okay, the problem, effect, and solution is in that song, then it's fine. Because they at the end of the day, they will use the language, they will use English to create that product. Because this is a English language lesson after all. Okay. Yeah. And also, like the project design elements here, it's focusing on sustained inquiry, critique and revision. Critique and revision here means, like for me, I did the project for 3 months with my students. So I have to constantly look at their project to see if it's okay or not. Okay. And then what other things that needs to be revised and refined, and then student voice and choice. So that means they can choose whatever format that they want. Okay. Because if it's possible, we don't really dictate what kind of product that they will do. But at the same time, we also need to consider if it's suitable for this project. But I guess it also depends on your level of students, right? Maybe for primary school, you have to decide maybe most of the time. But it really depends. You yourself, you know how your students are, so you decide. So as long as the solutions, however they present the solutions, they are, it needs to be based on the problems, effects. It needs to include the problem, effects, and then it also caters to the English language learning process. Okay. Okay, so thank you for sharing. Okay, next is the sixth stage, which is present product to experts and get feedback. So how do you want the students to products to be presented, and present to which organization or individual? Do you want it to do physically, virtually, asynchronously, on what platform? Okay, before you guys answer this, if you want to engage with organizations or individuals outside of the school, like what I did, we need to send a formal letter issued by the school. Okay, endorsed by your principal to establish the partnership with the expert before starting the project. And whatever you do, of course, you must inform our admins, right? The principal and maybe the PK1 as well. So you have to inform them of what we are doing, because if you want other people to be involved in this, or people outside of the school to be involved in this, then you need to inform your admins. So can you tell me, how do you want the students products to be presented? But I think some of you have already said that you want your students to do it for HIP corner. Okay, that's one of the ideas. But how about the rest? Do you want to reach out to certain organizations like NGOs ka, majlis daerah ka? For me, I approached NGOs. I approached one NGO because I already know that NGO. So I think for this one, you need to have extensive network, with NGOs ka, with other people ka, that that can evaluate your students' project. Okay, but I know this is a problem for maybe some of you, because what I did during the first time I did this was I only called my principal, my PK1, and also I invited the people in my school to come and watch the students' presentation. That's it. I did not approach NGOs and all that. For the presenting, when I called the NGO, that was my second time trying this project. So it was sort of trial and error lah. Okay. So I think, especially maybe for primary school, you can just maybe try call other teachers, come up and have the students present to them. Yeah, that is also good, because we want our students to also be confident in presentation. So maybe all of you can think about that, in the future when you want to implement this framework with your students. Okay. And be mindful of number 3. If you want to approach an organization outside of the school, you need to issue a formal letter. It's like an invitation letter lah. Okay, so the project design element is here public product, because PBL, you need to present the product to other people outside of the classroom. It cannot be just among yourselves, you know. And then the teaching practice, manage activities, because firstly, how you want to manage is you need to call people, approach people, approach organizations or individuals. And then, manage. Like for me, I did it asynchronously. That means I have to send all of the students' project into compile it into a Google Drive and send it to that NGO. So that is how I manage that. I use Google Drive. Okay. Oh, so Dato here said reaching out to NGO or social enterprise and pitch project is a good initiative. Teachers can also reach out to PPD. Yes, you can do this with PPDs, especially if the PPD or your SIC is a cooperative one. I'm sure they will be, they will like, they will help you out, like they will collaborate with you, and also to find potential partners. Exactly, because I'm sure PPDs, they have a lot of networks, they can help you out. So because this is for students, right? So why would not they help you, kan? Okay. So okay, thank you Dato for that. Yeah, that is one of the ways. But if you cannot do that, you just try to reach out to those within the school. Okay, from your principal your head of panel okay. All right, next is the last stage. Reflection. So reflection is one of the important project design elements for PBL. Okay, so this is a must. You must have reflection. So think about how do you want to conduct it? Okay, mid-project or just at the end? Usually, for me, I would do it at the end. I showed you the podcast earlier. That is one of the ways that I do it. But apart from the podcast, I also have my students write down their reflection in a paper lah. Okay, and then maybe I would like to look at your reflection questions that reflect what they learn, challenges, and their thoughts as a citizen. Since this is also a civic engagement project, civic engagement project. So you have to focus on their thoughts as a citizen, your students' thoughts as citizens. So for this stage, you can use this stage to get the data for improvements, what you need to do for the next batch. Yeah. Okay, well, you please try to create 3 reflection questions and share it in the chat box, yeah? So, okay, from Farah J, our school has made this PBL as compulsory, which is good. Okay, during the first week of school, okay, every class representative need to present in front of the whole school during co-curricular activities. Yes, so the main point here is presenting the project outside of the classroom, the whole school during co-curricular activities. So it's up to you when do you want your students to present it. So for this school, this one is school initiated. So it's like you have to follow a certain way of when to present and all that lah. But for my framework, it's for you, your own time and your own deadline, okay, and your own design. So you have that full autonomy as a teacher. Okay, every year the theme is sustainability, go green projects at school. Yeah. So this is quite interesting lah. So, but for this framework, you can decide what theme that you want, or maybe get the students to think of their own themes. Up to them. Okay, it is all up to you. Okay, Cikgu Shabita said, talk about what you learn and what you could do better next time. Ask what and yeah. So this is basically the type of reflection question that we can ask to our students. What they learn, what they can do better, improvements, and what windmill and not. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that, Chico Shabita. Okay, so Chico City here said maybe provide a self-assessment checklist where students can just tick or rate themselves. Yeah, that is also a form of reflection, because when you give them that self-assessment checklist, when they read the question, right, the checklist, they can like reflect on themselves. Is this me or not? Yeah. Yeah, that is one of the
It's
what is
good
that?
idea for primary lah.
Yeah. So like it really depends on the level of your students as well lah. Okay. So for teachers here, I believe you are primary school teachers, secondary school teachers, or maybe Form 6 teachers. You know your students well. So based on this framework, it's really flexible. It's just the stages that you need to follow. But when you implement the framework, apply the framework for your classroom, it's really flexible how you want to do it. Okay. All right. So, okay, thank you for your responses for this one. Okay, next is assessment. So for post-PBL implementation, of course, you really need assessment, because as teachers, we need to know our pedagogy, our curriculum, and do assessments, right? So for the post-PBL implementation, administer the same essay question as in the pre-PBL implementation, because right now you are no longer focusing on just content, but you're also focusing on the vocabularies that they learn, language skills, okay? In the form of WASA or SPM, up to you, it depends on your students' level, relating to the issue that they are exploring, okay? So you can create the questions and then administer the questions to them, but it must be the same essay question as before, okay? So that you'll know that what are the improvements. You can literally see the improvements. You know, perhaps you take one student's paper and compare it side by side. What were the vocabularies that they use? Maybe for me, like for SPM, I noticed that firstly they use like very, basic terms, and then at the end they know how to use less common lexis with regards to environment, like sustainable town planning, because there are certain terms that indicate less common lexis for their level. So for the assessment part, you look at their, the differences in the vocabulary, the level of vocabulary that they are using. Okay, so this is to gauge differences in vocabulary development during, before, and after the project. Okay, so that's why always have assessment in your project. Okay, and then, okay, just a bit of recap here. So for Gold Stand PBL, you need to have the 7 essential project design elements. All of this, you need to include all of this when you do the PBL. And then, okay, it must be, as a teacher, these are the teaching practices that you must have. Okay, it's aligned to standards, the DSKP, and then build the culture. That means, I mentioned that they need to collaborate well. They need to, in any group that they're in, they must be, they are okay with one another. And then another thing is, you need to know your students well, because you can leverage on their talents. Okay. And then manage activities, care for student learning, assess student learning. So assessment is very important for this. And then engage in coach, design, and plan. That's why based on the 7 stages, you need to design. It indicates designing and planning. Okay, so this is a recap of all the framework that I use, all the stages for the framework. Okay, and then, so remember, focus on vocabulary development, okay, based on the theme throughout the project. So we're not only focusing on content, but also vocabulary through the content, okay? And it's interesting to see their development during the before and after. Okay, incorporate the explicit use of language elements that will help students achieve a 5. But it really depends whether you are teaching primary or secondary lah. Okay. So a few considerations here when you want to do this. How about your capacity? I know some of us, we are very busy with stuff. We have our own portfolios at our school, you know. And then institutional consent and support. That means this one is referring to if you want to approach NGOs, okay, or social enterprises for them to evaluate your students' project. I think this one is mostly applies to secondary school teachers lah, okay? And that's why you have to have consent from your principal, okay? And then support from your principal, and also support from your PPD as well, because like Dato said just now, you can approach PPD for that, okay? And then a cooperative expert, is the person cooperative? Do they want to evaluate your students' project? Yeah, that one you also need to consider. And then, is it suitable topic for your context? So like I said, it must, well, it depends whether you choose the topic, okay, for your students, but make it broad, okay? Or you have them choose the topic that they want, but it must be suitable for their context. For example, if, okay, you want to do something related with the sea, this one is suitable if your students, they are at, you know, sekolah kampung, sekolah dekat pulau, that one is suitable. But it will be difficult if they are in the middle of, you know, in the interior, there's no sea, there are no beaches, and yet you want them to have that kind of project. So it's fine, but I believe it's kind of difficult because the main thing here is you want your students to be engaged with the community, and the community should also know what is going on within the surroundings because they need to get data from that, right? Yeah. So it must be suitable for your students' context. Okay. And then availability of resources and materials. This one is especially important. You know, if you want your students to do online stuff, okay, of course the internet must be good. And then what sort of, you have to think of like information that they can get for this project. Then timeliness and schedules for all parties. Yeah, so this one is referring to your takvim sekolah lah, because I know our own school, our schools, we have our own programs, so we have to look at how busy we will be so that we don't overwhelm ourselves and we don't overwhelm our students. That's the key. We want to do this project, you know, in a fun way as a teacher, and also fun way for our students and students' age. Yeah. So if you're like, I know, like earlier you talked about the safety, you know, if you want interview the community, so you don't want your students to go out like because of their age, right? Especially for primary school, you need to, you can just do it around the school area lah. I mean within the school area. Okay, so these are the things that you need to consider. Okay, any questions? Yeah, I think that's it. You can ask in the chat box.
We don't have, if no question, I think the presentation is very clear for me lah. I hope you all understand that we are learn about a framework PBL, how you do the PBL, right? Okay, so nampaknya mungkin tidak ada soalan dan link sijil kehadiran pun sudah dikongsikan. Sebelum tu kita ucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada Puan Auzellea di atas sesi hands-on sebentar tadi. Cukup bermakna. Dan saya sendiri pun saya buat nota. Saya buat nota. Okey, jadi oleh itu mohon semua guru untuk mengisi maklumat balas dan kehadiran melalui link yang telah dikongsikan. Dan tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, kita akan adakan Siri ini pada setiap hari Khamis. Masa akan dimaklumkan untuk maklumat awal para peserta. Cik Azwani, ada tak poster minggu hadapan untuk Siri ke 118? So ini adalah tada, kita punya minggu hadapan, iaitu Kick Starting Action Research with ChatGPT, applying the Khamis and make, target, model, plan, act, observe, and reflect yang akan disampaikan oleh Dr. Raina, pensyarah akademik LPG, kampus scanning dan moderator pada minggu depan. Itu dia cikgu yang cukup terkenal, Encik Quid Wicket. Alright, so sekarang kita pergi pula ke sesi foto bersama-sama sebagai kenang-kenang. Jom, Cik Hazwani, silakan.
Okay, cikgu-cikgu boleh buka kamera. Okay, saya ambil gambar. 1, 2, 3. Sekali lagi, 1, 2, 3. Freestyle. 1, 2, 3. Okay, semua sudah. Saya serahkan kembali kepada Cikgu Masnurul.
Baiklah, dengan berakhirnya, terima kasih Cik Azwani, dengan berakhirnya sesi bergambar sebentar tadi, maka berakhirlah si ke-117 kita pada petang ini. Dan sebelum berakhir, saya nak ucapkan terima kasih sekali lagi kepada Puan Auzellea untuk pengurusan hari ini, kepada semua guru-guru Sabahan yang akan menyambut Tadau Kamatan, Kota Tadau Tagaya Do Kamatan, Foto Moroh, dan untuk Sarawakian, Gaya Guru Gerai Nyamai, dan untuk guru-guru Muslim, seluruh Malaysia, selamat bercuti, selamat Hari Raya Haji. Sekian saja daripada kami semua. Yang baik itu datangnya daripada Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala dan segala yang kurang itu datangnya dari kelemahan saya sendiri. Sekian saja, jumpa lagi di sesi akan datang. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan sampai jumpa. Terima kasih semua.